I hate intros. Attack on Titan Season 1. We kick things off in the year 845 with the main character, Eren Yeager, having a bad dream and uncontested waifu Mikasa Ackerman there to point out that he's crying.
Eren, どうして泣いてるの?
When they head back to town, they run into NA cops and Hans who are drinking on the job. Eren has clearly never tried drinking on the job before, so he gets upset, but at least they're not killing minorities. Now we are introduced to a poor boy named Armin who nearly died to an overexposure of highly concentrated beta characteristics. Oh, by the way, the Colossal Titan shows up, kicks a hole in the wall, and a Titan kills Eren's mom. Episode 2. Realizing the district is lost, soldiers have to close Wall Maria. This cues the introduction of the Armored Titan who breaks through the wall and lets Titans into the first major territory. So now that Wall Maria is compromised, refugees have to fall back even further to Wall Rose. We get a quick look at Eren's dad who is heading back from a trip. Inside of Wall Rose, there isn't enough food to support the overflow of refugees coming from Wall Maria. With food supply so low in the year 846, the central government sends 250,000 refugees, including Armin's grandfather, to retake Wall Maria where all but 100 die. This was essentially a suicide mission in order to clear up food for the remaining population. All three agree on going to military training and end up joining Training Unit 104, led by Keith Chartetis. Episode 3, aka the side character intro episode. We come in with the training of the new recruits where we are introduced to some of the temporary side characters such as Thomas Wagner and Mina Carolina. John Kirsten also gets his first scene where he's headbutt for admitting to joining so that he could live in the safety of the inner walls. Marco Bott attempts to suck up with his answers and gets shut down. Connie Springer forgets what hand to salute with, so he gets a gentle reminder, right before Sasha Brass becomes an instant legend / meme and then is forced to run all day. Potato Girl helps introduce Krista Lenz while she brings her some food since she's been running all day, as well as Krista's friend Ymir. The next challenge is the 3D maneuver gear aptitude training test, which Mikasa one-shots while daydreaming about Eren. On the opposite end of the spectrum, Eren fails miserably while daydreaming about killing Titans. Eren starts asking everybody for tips, including Reiner Braun and Bertolt Hoover, to instead get a sad story. Turns out he didn't actually need the advice. He had faulty equipment, which is why he was struggling, so when they fixed that, he was a natural and finally passes the aptitude test. Episode 4. Jump ahead 2 years after enlisting to the year 850, and we get some new character introductions, including Annie Leonhardt. Everyone is still in training and continuing to work hard to improve. The military is structured into 3 branches: the garrison defending the walls, the recon corps, which Eren is shooting for, who go outside the walls and fight the Titans, and finally the military police brigade, who live inside the inner walls and work under the king. Everyone runs into Hans again for the first time since they left for training. Hans apologizes to Eren for not being able to save his mother, and Eren forgives him. Finally, out of training and 5 years after his mother's death, Eren is feeling as confident as ever, which is the proper time to cue the second appearance of the Colossal Titan who kicks a hole through the district wall. Episode 5. Eren goes toe-to-toe with the Colossal Titan by himself. I don't know what everybody else was doing, but when he sees an opening to hit the vital on his neck, the Titan releases steam and disappears before he could land the strike. Even though the Colossal Titan is gone, the wall is still breached, so residents of the district are forced to evacuate back to Wall Rose. Soldiers are sent out with the objective of holding off the Titans until the evacuation is complete. Eren is assigned to Squad 34 along with Armin, Thomas, and Mina, who get ordered to aid the front line. Right as they're getting into the fight, they run into an abnormal and Thomas is killed. Eren goes into a rage and rushes to kill the Titan and avenge Thomas, but while heading there, he gets clipped out of midair and loses his leg. The squad goes to help him, but Mina is thrown into a wall and killed by another Titan. Armin is Armin and is about to be eaten, so Eren has to throw him to safety, but while saving him, he loses his arm and is eaten by the Titan. Episode 6. Ymir, Connie, and Krista find Armin, who's in typical meltdown mode. Dima Reeves gets his cart stuck in Wall Rose, which is why the evacuation is going so slowly. Mikasa has to threaten him to get the evacuation back on track. We get some lore on Mikasa and how her and Eren came to know each other. Some men come to abduct her and her mother to sell because they're both Oriental, which is very rare. The men had only planned on killing the father, but in the heat of the moment, they end up killing both parents. Eren's dad was a doctor who was heading to their house with Eren and sees the bodies. Since she's missing, Eren goes looking for her and kills 2 of the men, then is attacked by the 3rd. He somehow manages to monologue with a grown man choking the life out of him to convince Mikasa to fight back. She has a sudden burst of power of some sort and then kills the 3rd man. With her parents dead, Eren's dad takes her in and Eren gives her his scarf, which is why she's always wearing it. Back to the present, Mikasa defies orders to go aid the second line. Episode 7. The retreat order is given to the remaining soldiers, but they are out of gas because the support squads who were supposed to be bringing them gas for their maneuver gear are pinned down inside of HQ. Mikasa reaches some of the survivors who point her to Armin. Armin explains what happened with Eren and how he sacrificed himself to save him. Mikasa is surprisingly calm hearing this news and takes control of the situation to command them on what to do next. However, when heading to the HQ, Mikasa shows signs that she is distraught at the loss of Eren. She burns through her gas too quickly and crashes, leaving her stranded on ground level. While being approached by a Titan, she feels like she's given up on living, but something inside her forces her to take action to avoid death. She's confused as to why she's still trying to survive when she was ready to die a second ago. An abnormal Titan shows up and cheap shots the Titan that was after her. Then curb stomps the Titan to death, giving Connie and Armin the chance to grab Mikasa and get her to safety. Episode 8. Adamine is still dead weight, but comes up with a fairly predictable plan to use the Abnormal Titan to attack the other Titans at HQ. Mikasa goes to help clear a path for the Abnormal Titan in an attempt to lure him to HQ. While that's happening, John, who was supposed to go to the inner walls and safety in one day, struggles to lead in Mikasa's stead, but eventually makes it to HQ with a handful of survivors. John finds some of the supply squad cowering under a desk and loses it because of all the lives it cost. Mikasa successfully lures the Abnormal just in time to save them from approaching Titans. While the Abnormal fights outside, the others still need to secure the storeroom with the canisters. Admin, who needs some desperate relevancy in the story, comes up with another rather stale plan that is portrayed as this mind-blowing epiphany. The useless soldiers will blind the Titans with guns while real fighters go for the vitals before they can regen. The tension is immense as they wait for Titans to get as close as possible, and all I can think is, why would you give Admin a gun? The attack succeeds and they can finally retreat back to Wall Rose, but before they do, they notice that the Abnormal is being pinned down and eaten by Titans. They contemplate helping it, but before they can, the Titan who killed Thomas shows up. The Abnormal goes into a rage and pushes itself to its limits, killing the Titan and avenging Thomas. After that, it collapses, the neck pops open like a cockpit, and Eden makes his dramatic reappearance. Episode 9. Rewind to earlier that day before the attack. The Recon Corps had left on a mission, which is why the attack was so much more devastating than it should have been. During the mission, they start to realize that the Titans are heading toward the city, so they start heading back, fearing the worst. Now we jump ahead just a bit to where Eden had been eaten by the Titan while saving Beta Boy. While he's in the Titan's stomach, he yells at the Titan's butt just before he turns into the Abnormal Titan that helps secure HQ. Finally, we jump back to the present where Eden, Admin, and Mikasa are held at gunpoint by the soldiers inside of Wall Rose. Eden had just come to and has no recollection of changing into a Titan, so he's confused as to why they're in this situation. Captain Keats Waterman is leading the interrogation, but is terrified and isn't satisfied with the answers they've been providing, so he prepares to signal artillery to kill all three of them. In a panic, Mikasa prepares to escape over the wall while grabbing Eden. While doing this, Eden sees the key that his dad gave him hanging around his neck, and memories he had forgotten started coming back of his dad injecting him with a mysterious serum and telling him that he needs to learn to control this power and take back Wall Maria so that he can get to his dad's basement. This means that Eden had come into contact with his dad after the first attack and the death of his mom 5 years ago. To protect Mikasa and Admin, he bites his hand and turns partway into a Titan, at least enough to stop the blast from killing everybody. Episode 10. After all of his hard work, Admin had finally achieved his lifelong goal of being inside of Eden. They decide to have Admin speak on their behalf and convince the captain that they aren't a threat. He tries explaining that because the other Titans had attacked him in his Titan form, he's obviously considered an enemy, so they should trust him and use his powers to retake Wall Maria. The captain's fear is too great for him to listen to logic at this point, so he prepares to launch a second attack when he's stopped by Pixies, who is the superior, and says he wants to hear him out. He decides to give the three of them protection if Eden agrees to use his Titan form to move a boulder in front of the opening in Trust District wall to stop the flow of Titans and retake the district. Episode 11. Pixies explains his plan to all the soldiers, claiming that Eden is actually a military science subject who can turn into a Titan and that they're going to use him to close the opening in the wall. The plan is to have a small team of elites escort him and protect him while he's moving the boulder, while a decoy team is sent out to draw Titans away from the boulder to minimize resistance. Eden reaches the boulder and transforms while Mikasa is standing nearby. She realizes something is wrong, and Eden suddenly attacks Mikasa. Episode 12. Mikasa dodges Eden's attacks and tries talking to him, accidentally initiating the beloved children's game Why Are You Hitting Yourself?, which knocks Eden and his Titan unconscious. Titans start closing in on the elites, so Ian, who is in charge, orders the elites to fight the incoming Titans and protect Eden. Admin, who is on the decoy team, gets to them, and Mikasa explains that he's knocked out and can't control the Titan. Needing to wake Eden up, Admin stabs through the Titan's neck to injure Eden, forcing him to wake up. Eden's Titan jolts in pain after Admin stabs him through the arm, but he's hallucinating that he's with his family. Eden finally breaks from his hallucination thanks to Beta Boy, and his Titan wakes up. Episode 13. Eden had regained control of his Titan and starts carrying the boulder to the opening in the wall. While protecting him, Itabi is crushed by Wall, and Ian is decapitated, conveniently leaving the Hot Eco as the only elite who survives. While they're fighting, Eden successfully blocks the opening, signaling the first victory for humanity against the Titans. Oh, and John's side character friend Marco died. Eden is held in a cell by the military police and questioned by Commander Edwin and Captain Levi. He says that he wants to join the Recon Corps and eradicate the Titans. This convinces Levi, and he says that he's going to take responsibility for Eden. Episode 14. Although Levi said that he was going to take Eden under his responsibility, he's still being held by the military police. Word is getting around about the Titan ally. The military police who live inside of Walsina want to eliminate Eden because of the rumors spreading about him heading a revolt against the inner wall. Because of the split decision between the military police and the Recon Corps, a military tribunal is scheduled where Eden's fate will be decided. Commander-in-Chief Daddy Exactly is given the responsibility of deciding Eden's fate in front of a court. Aunt Zoe makes her first appearance while creeping on Eden when she comes to escort him to the court. Both sides state their case, and it isn't looking good for Eden as people are being swayed by the military police. That's when Eden, being Eden, is like, wait, I feel a monologue coming on, and pops off on all the attendees. In response to this, Captain Levi gives him the ass-kicking of a century, but sends a message that he is capable and ready of keeping Eden under control. Commander Edwin suggests taking Eden on an expedition to see if he really is willing to help them, which is enough to convince Exactly, so Eden is released to the Recon Corps. Episode 15. Eden is released and they move him to the former Recon Corps HQ, which is a castle inside of Wall Rose. We get a couple of new faces who are in the Special Ops Squad or Levi Squad. Levi goes into his notorious cleaning mode while birthing an internet meme. The rest of the episode is pretty filler as Kanji shows up and wants Eden to help out with two Titans they captured while retaking Trosk. But when they go to perform the experience, both of the Titans have been killed through the night. Apparently it was more than one soldier with 3D maneuver gear, but nobody knows who. Episode 16. We come in with inspections of recruits and their gear, trying to find the ones responsible for killing the Titans who were in captivity. In light of the loss of his friend Marco, John thinks back to some of the things that Marco said to him and ends up deciding to join the Recon Corps. 24. Eden is finally reunited with Beta Boy and Mikasa, where he learns that John joined as well, and also about Marco's death. The last scene is the Recon Corps officially launching the 57th expedition. Episode 17. During the expedition, Armin and his squad leader Ness come into contact with an abnormal. This female Titan appears to be intelligent, so when Ness and his man go for her vitals, she quickly kills both of them. Armin is now alone, gets knocked off his horse by the Titan, and is helpless. The Titan pulls back his hood to get a good look at his face and then lets him live. Armin is soon reunited with Reiner and John, and they pursue the female Titan, who they came to the conclusion is a human controlling the Titan like Eden. The three of them attempt to injure her to prevent her from reaching Eden, who is her presumed goal. Reiner nearly dies, but they all make it out alive, at least stunting her progress. She is last seen running toward the center rear where Eden is supposedly at. Episode 18. The formation runs into a forest of large trees. The middle formation goes through the forest while the side formations go around the outside. Eden is confused as to why they're riding through the forest, which hinders their ability to protect the wagons. When he asks Levi, he receives no answer and realizes that it's not just him, but the whole squad is in the dark and having doubts about what exactly is going on. The female Titan shows herself and engages soldiers while trying to reach Eden. Episode 19. The female Titan is right behind them, but Levi tells them to keep going, which pays off because just ahead was an ambush that Edwin had set up to capture the female Titan. Levi heads back to meet with Edwin and find out who's in the Titan, while Levi's squad and Eden go ahead without him. Episode 20. Levi's squad discuss why they didn't know about the ambush and come to the conclusion that there must be a spy in the army. Attempts to extract the person inside the Titan fail because it can harden his skin, preventing strikes from being effective. It releases a cry for help and Titans converge from all sides. The female Titan's body is eaten by the Titans, but there is no proof that whoever was inside was killed. All the squads get the retreat order and start heading back. Whoever was in the female Titan disguises themselves as a Recon Corps member and shoots off a green smoke flare. Thinking it's Levi, the squad set up their own flare, revealing their position. The mystery character uses 3D maneuver gear to attack and kill Gunther in the last scene. Episode 21. Levi's squad and Eden continue running to get Eden to safety from the disguised assailant, who turns back into the female Titan. The rest of the Levi squad members are killed by the female Titan, so Eden loses it and transforms to fight. This moron throws a haymaker into the ground twice, breaking both of his arms. Once that heals, he gets his face kicked in half. With this Titan disabled, Eden is abducted, and Mikasa comes in at the perfect time to see this. Mikasa pursues and flexes, but is intercepted by Levi, who tells her to follow the Titan because she's probably getting tired. Episode 22. Levi and Mikasa are still in pursuit of the female Titan and eventually fight her. Look, I'm not gay. I'm not. But Levi makes my heart beat like I am. He bounces back and cuts open the Titan's mouth, revealing Eden, retrieves him, and retreats. The Recon Corps is under heavy scrutiny by the public when they return, and it's decided that Eden is going to be handed over to the military police. Episode 23. Back in Walsina, we go over to Annie, who's now a member of the military police. There's a relatively pointless side story about a guy named Marlo who wants to stop corruption. He sees corruption happening, tries to stop it, and gets smacked around. While heading back, someone calls to Annie, so she goes to investigate and finds Beta Boy there. He explains that they're planning on executing Eden, and he wants her help to get Eden free. They move through the city using John as a decoy in his place. Everything is going smoothly until they get to the abandoned underground city that they're going to use to escape, and that's when Annie refuses to go inside. She realizes that there hasn't been any people nearby for a long time and knows something is up. Jump back just a bit, and Armin had recognized that Annie had Marco's 3D gear during the inspections because he worked on it with him and recognized the dings and scratches on it. Marco was John's friend who mysteriously died on the decoy team moving the boulder in Trosk. Mikasa doesn't beat around the bush and just accuses her outright of being the female Titan. She has a completely normal reaction to this accusation and then tries to bite her hand. Armin pops a noise grenade, signaling nearby soldiers to subdue her. They succeed in preventing the bite, but she's wearing a ring that she can use to help her transform. Episode 24. They have to switch to plan B, which is Eden transforming into his Titan form to fight Annie, but even though he injures himself, he can't transform. We get a quick flashback of all the things they discover that pointing to Annie being the Titan. Mikasa goes full Yandere when she suspects that he can't transform because he has feelings for Annie. They can't stay in the tunnels though, so Mikasa and Armin have to run out as a distraction to give Eden a chance to escape, but as they do, Eden is crushed by debris. Soldiers try to stop Annie, and Mikasa gets knocked out of the fight. And finally, Eden transforms, throwing a sucker punch on a girl to kick off the final fight. Episode 25. Sunday school gets out early while Eden and Annie go head to head. Eden gets manhandled and looks like he's out of it after that severe beatdown, but then reverts to his classic self. He starts messing her up, so she tries to climb the wall to safety. Mikasa isn't having that though and cuts off her fingers, preventing her escape, followed by an edgy one-liner. Eden goes to extract Annie from the Titan, but when he sees her, he freezes, giving Annie the chance to preserve herself inside the Titan's hardened skin. All the attempts they make to get to her fail. Handing over Eden to the military police is put on hold in light of the events. After that, Annie is moved underground for safekeeping. The last scene after the ending credits reveals that during the fight between the Titans, part of Walsina was damaged and pieces break off, revealing a face of a Titan inside the wall.